Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bell headquarters here in Scotts Valley, California. We are here in the Bell Plus Giro Dome Test Lab. We're about an hour from Laguna Seca, which is where Sea Otter Classic is normally held, but this year they've gone digital with Sea Otter Play, which we are excited to be a part of. Today we're going to answer all of your questions about spherical technology. I'm Azure. I will be our moderator today. I'm joined by Simon Fisher, Category Manager for Bell Bike and Power Sports, and also by Scott Weitzel, our Senior Mechanical Engineer. I'm going to have them briefly introduce themselves before we jump right into the questions. Simon.
Hi, thank you. Normally we would be down in Laguna Seca, and especially today is a beautiful day in the Bay Area here, so we would be standing outside, getting a little sun, seeing a little bit of racing, maybe racing ourselves. And then, talking all things bike and Bell at the Bell booth. And some of you probably came by in the past having pancakes and maybe even an adult beverage after everything was done. But again, we're in new times now and have gone digital. So here we are inside of the Dome, which is the Bell and Giro Dome. This is the research and testing facility that Bell and Giro both use. My name is Simon Fisher. I am the category manager for Bell helmets, both what we call the specialties, so the bike helmets that you see in the stores today, as well as the power sports. So these are all of the motorcycle helmets that Bell puts out globally. Super happy to be here, and again, we're here to answer your questions about all things Bell, but specifically around Spherical. So happy to be with you today, even in this strange digital format. And joining me today is Scott Weitzel, which I'll let him introduce himself, but is the brains behind the organization.
Hey guys, as Simon says, it's a bummer not to be down there with you guys at Laguna Seca this year. It's always a super fun event. It's always great to get FaceTime with all the fans and everybody who has a bunch of questions. And hopefully today we'll have an opportunity to kind of answer some or any of those questions you guys have. Simon mentioned Spherical, but I'm sure if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them our way, and we'll see what we can do about it. My name's Scott, as I said, and I started at Bell about 6 or 7 years ago. I'm a senior mechanical engineer, started on the power sports side and moved eventually to more bike and power sports at the same time. So we've been working on a lot of really cool stuff. We've got some really cool stuff coming up, but let's get into it.
All right. Well, first question. What is spherical technology?
Technology. And you'll notice today too that we don't have masks on, which again, if we were in person, we probably would. But because we're all in very different parts of the building, but this allows us to actually speak, and you can actually hear us. So that's a nice little feature here. Spherical technology. Spherical is a combination of a lot of things, but between Bell and Giro, who again use the Dome as our research and testing facility, combined over 70 years of innovations, of testing, of materials, to bring all together, basically to make the best cycling, power sports helmets on the market. And Spherical is just a culmination of all of that, working with MIPS technology. So many of you are familiar with MIPS. MIPS stands for multi-directional impact protection. And MIPS is a liner. It is a slip plane inside of a helmet. And some of you might be familiar with those being the yellow liner on the inside of a helmet, or maybe you've just seen the MIPS, the yellow dot on the back of a helmet. And that just means that the helmet is equipped with a MIPS system. Spherical is a fairly new system, one that we've had in the market for a couple of years. Actually started on the ski side of our Giro business, and Bell brought it over into the bike side of our business. But Spherical effectively creates two layers within the helmet. The inner layer, which is what's against your head, allows for better comfort, it allows for better ventilation, ultimately lighter weight, and Scott can elaborate on that. And then the outer layer that it slips against allows, again, for the ultimate in terms of protection and impact protection. But probably a better person to describe actually how it works would be Scott, again, who's worked on this system and helped develop these helmets.
Yeah, so the traditional bike helmet is just a big chunk of foam with some plastic on it, and we're all familiar with what they look like inside and out. And from the outside, this looks pretty much your standard. And for the longest time in the industry, we were designing helmets to try to absorb linear impacts, and those are the kind of impacts where you're coming and the thing hits right just perpendicularly to the helmet. And we call that a linear impact because as the energy is coming in right here, it hits and it goes directly in a straight line towards your head. And that's what helmets have been designed traditionally to protect against. And that's what we're doing here as well, because it is still a very, very important consideration. What in recent years people have been doing a lot of research about, and MIPS actually has a very fantastic explanation of all this on their website, because this is their bread and butter, is oblique or nonlinear rotational impacts. And those impacts, we talked about linear doing this. An oblique impact is coming along the helmet sort of like this, or catching it on the side. And it's not a direct transfer of energy in that regard. It's more of a sort of a yaw or a pitch that's happening. And so really what Spherical does, and MIPS overall, is you can kind of see this is a cutaway here that shows the interior liner and the exterior liner. And as that non-linear one kind of catches your helmet, it'll push it or pull it, whichever way it needs to move. And you can see that you've got, full rotation about all three axes. And what's great about MIPS in general, or Spherical especially, is that it's more comprehensive. It's you're getting those linear and the non-linear rotational impacts, and this is our sort of approach to it, and it's fantastic, and it offers a bunch of other benefits that I'm sure that we'll get into aside from just the rotational stuff.
I think we've seen or heard it described as like a ball and socket design. Can you go in a little bit into how that works and why we're calling it a ball and socket?
Yeah, I'll start it out, and then Scott can maybe elaborate on a little bit of why that's so important. But a ball and socket, back to anatomy class, where you've got a ball and socket like you'd see within our skeletal structure, where put my helmet down here. You have a ball and socket, so the ball on the inside is able to rotate freely within the socket itself. And MIPS operates very similar to that, in that you have the inner ball on the inside and the outer socket. And so what it does is it's separating those two layers from one another, so that, as Scott pointed out, in the event of a non-linear, so we all know we've crashed a few times. And crashes are rarely very straightforward, like you just hit here and that's it. And usually it's a more violent thing that happens. And what that helps do is it helps slow down the rotation of the helmet, because the inside and outside of the helmet can move independently with each other with that MIPS system in between.
Yeah, and just to do maybe a little bit better view, this is unmodified except for the cutaway that we can show here. So you can see that there's a huge degree of movement freedom for that ball and socket to work. And it's a really neat design, and MIPS has done a ton of research, and this is basically our approach on how to answer that question that is becoming more and more common these days.
So you've kind of touched on it, but what's really the biggest difference between MIPS and Spherical technology?
Yeah, so since I am the marketing guy, category side, but Spherical technology powered by MIPS. So this was developed between MIPS and the Bell Giro Advanced Concepts division here, and really there is not a lot of difference in terms of the actual way that the MIPS system works. And I'll let Scott explain a little bit of the way the slip plane works. As he's noted and shown here, it's a slippery plastic plane that allows for this 15 to 20 millimeters of movement with elastomers to kind of hold it in place. That's to keep it from flopping all over the place. But really, from a MIPS standpoint, our opening price point, or one of our less expensive models, like a Nomad, which has MIPS in it as well, and the Super Air, which again utilizes our most advanced MIPS technology, which is the Spherical, operate the same way. And we'll get into it just in a moment here, but there are some huge benefits that come with Spherical, because otherwise you say, well, why should I spend the extra money, or what are the benefits of getting Spherical? if the MIPS system is behaving in a very similar way. Now let Scott maybe go a little deeper into that.
Yeah, so, oftentimes people say, what's the difference between MIPS and spherical? And like Simon says, really there isn't that much of a difference. It's an application of the ideas that MIPS has come up with and similar technology. The elastomers, you're going to find those in almost every MIPS helmet. The hard plastic shell that gives you that low friction layer, that's standard. You'll find that across the line in most helmets that have that little MIPS logo. What's really cool about spherical, though, is by moving that plastic shell further away from your head, we're opening up the ability for us to have a little bit better venting. Sometimes with some of those MIPS helmets with a yellow plastic layer, you see that some of the vents are blocked off, or just by virtue of the fact that it has to be a fairly constant plane or not plane, but a fairly constant surface for the MIPS to slide against. The other thing that's cool about that is as we move that away, you can see there's these two pieces that we're talking about. This internal piece, we can use a different material for that, or the same material if the impacts need it. But what that allows us to do is, instead of using EPS, which is this standard foam that everyone knows, you've seen the helmets, it's used everywhere on Earth. As this crushes, you can see that it doesn't rebound. It absorbs that energy and it'll stay static like that. And that's really good. That's what you want. And that's why we recommend, if anybody's crashed their helmet, you need to get a new one, because that foam has been used up. It has absorbed that energy, it's deformed, and it's done its job. What's cool is we can use this other material on the inside, and this is EPP. And you can see that I'm crushing it with the same amount of effort, same amount of deflection, and it's regaining its form. And so what we can do is we can take that sort of softer foam and put that on the inside here. So that's what's actually touching your head in a lot of areas, which allows it to be a little bit more adaptive. It'll possibly fit your head a little bit better, because it is a slightly softer material than that hard EPS that we're accustomed to. And the other thing that it does is it allows us to build a structure in here so that inner piece, can pivot and do all the stuff that it needs, but it doesn't need to be restricted by the overall design of the helmet, basically. It allows us to keep, by moving it away from your head form, it allows us to keep this real constant, smooth shape to it, rather than trying to match all the nooks and crannies of a standard head form.
So with the multiple pieces, does that make the helmet heavier?
No, it doesn't. This is a common question, like what makes a helmet heavy? There's a lot of different factors that make helmets heavier. Components you put on there, different fit systems. As Scott pointed out, different foams. Different foams weigh different amounts based on their density. And that's just how dense they are in the helmet itself. But one of the benefits we have found, so we have been producing the Super Series, which is always fun to say, the Super Series since 2015. And those helmets have really revolutionized kind of the trail category of helmets. And within that, right, not only has deeper coverage become part of the overall equation, but also the chin bar here. So you're adding pieces and parts to it. But what the Super Air did, comparatively to the Super 3R, which has been in the market for a few years now, is actually lower the weight. Approximately 144 grams, but enough to make it a lighter weight trail helmet. And of course, the benefits of that are that when you're wearing it, it almost disappears on you. And then, of course, something that Bell has been very famous for over the last bunch of years is the ability to not only have that additional protection from the chin bar on the way down, but the ability to remove it. So whether you're riding maybe less aggressive trails, you can just ride the standard helmet the way it is, or of course you can always add on the chin bar. And again, in both cases, we're able to lighten the overall helmet from its previous version, and MIPS is the spherical is a big part of that, in order to help lower the density of foams, as Scott pointed out, which have a whole bunch of extra benefits like being more comfortable, and again, that weight that you save.
Yeah, so another one of the cool things about building a two-piece helmet, and to address the weight issue, a lot of times in bike helmets, you see this EPS foam, and like I said, that's your impact absorption material. It's generally, as a general rule, it's pretty high density stuff, and that means per little cubic area, it's relatively heavy. EPP, which we're using on the inside, in general, is lighter in lower density. So you're basically taking an area inside here that normally would be EPS, and you're replacing it with a lighter material of basically the same volume. So, or a lower density material of the same volume. So this piece is lighter than it would be if it was made out of EPS. That's one of the benefits of using it, in addition to the comfort, and as well as now you've got a really cool, because we all ride, and we're always worried about sweating and suffering on our way up the hill. It takes a lot of effort, and the heavier your helmet is, it's a bummer, and it can be a bummer. So it's always one of our things that we try to approach when we're building these. After impact and all that attenuation and everything we do, that is one of the first things that we look at is overall weight and how much effort it's going to take us or our riders to get up the hill.
Nice. I guess now we know why we called it the Super Air.
Super duper.
So what about temperature? Does Spherical make the helmet hotter when you're riding?
Yeah, another great question, and again, a little bit of that comes into design, but most definitely the spherical technology that Scott alluded to a little bit earlier helps actually improve airflow through the helmet. And ultimately, the airflow of a helmet is both the intakes, so the large vents that you have that bring the air in, and then the outflow out the back, which is allowing the heat so that the air to come into the helmet and then pass through the back of the helmet. And like now I'm holding, this is the Super DH. So again, a little less of that ultimate ventilation that you find in a Super Air, but still, using the same tenets where the spherical technology allows us to make vents that are all the way passed through. So as Scott pointed out, sometimes when you put a NIPS system on inside of a helmet, or any other kind of additional add-ons to the inside, it can actually disrupt some of that airflow, which is a big engineering feat in terms of allowing the air to come in and then exit out the back. And that's something that we put a lot of time and effort into. We have actually a therminator. It's a head form that has sensors across it to actually measure the amount of heat coming from the head and how the wind and air come in and then exit out the back. So, long story short is the Super Air is going to be one of the most ventilated trail helmets on the market. And a lot of that is due to not only the design, but the spherical technology that we utilize.
Yeah, and to further chime in on that, I was talking about the two pieces and the different structures. Simon pointed out, you can hold these up and you can look straight through them like, any average bike helmet. But what's kind of cool about it is, first, you can kind of see on the inside here, these internal vents are actually bigger in some places than the external vents. So you're actually getting more volume of air inside touching your head, which is where you need to be moving the heat from. The other thing that's really neat is by having these two pieces, you can create galleries of air in between the two parts of the helmet that will move air across, sort of across this plane, and it'll pick up heat from here or this vent and move it more towards the back of the helmet as air flows across and gets pulled out the back by negative pressure behind the helmet as you ride. So you've got a whole nother set of areas that you can work to channel and direct air to places on the head that maybe normally are kind of missed with like a standard helmet or a like with a big piece of plastic in there. So it's really cool stuff, and it allows us all kinds of neat little tricks that we can perform.
Nice. So what Bell helmets have Spherical in them right now?
Yeah, so we've touched on both of them at different times here, but the one I'm holding, the Super DH, and as most of you know out there in the wild world, biking is going through a pretty big boom. Whether you're out at the park, e-bikes, which are growing very rapidly, again, trail bikes, which are still just on a rapid rise, and people just wanting to get out and do something with their family, with each other, and again, mountain biking has been one of those great sports that we've seen a lot of activity in. The Super DH, which is a downhill certified, so this means that if you're obviously going to a downhill race, it has that certification. But if you're going to a park or riding some really aggressive trails, or possibly you have an e-bike and you're okay with a little extra protection in exchange for some of the weight, the Super DH is just going to be a great option there. And then the other two that are in the market currently, I'll put this one out, is going to be the Super Air R. And Super Air R just means that it comes equipped with the chin bar. So this is again the removable chin bar, brand new technology we launched last year with just the two markers here. So 2 clicks and you can take it off. And then of course ride it as a standard version, which is the Super Air. So realistically we have 3 different versions of the Spherical technology in the marketplace right now. And again, we sell all 3 of these independently, or of course you can see that these two are the same helmet, just one with and one without the chin bar. And those are what we have currently in the market right
now. We've heard that Giro's also using Spherical. Can you talk a little bit about what that means?
Absolutely. So this is the brand new helmet from Giro. This was just launched earlier this spring. No, this is not Giro's brand new helmet. Just to date myself, actually I had worked on the Giro brand for many years previous to working with Bell, and actually built helmets. So I'm old enough to have actually built this helmet when it was actually built here in Santa Cruz, in SoCal actually, in Santa Cruz, California. Yes, Giro also utilizes the Spherical technology, and Giro uses that on a brand new helmet they just launched this year, the Manifest, which is an outstanding trail helmet. They've also got it on the road side of the business as well. And so this is, as the dome we've talked about before, this is a shared resource that both the Bell brand and the Giro brand use. And so both of us have Spherical options in the market, again, for whatever kind of riding style you have. Oh, I just dropped my Giro helmet. Absolutely. I mean, this is something where Spherical as a technology, you can see just by its price tag that we have in the marketplace that it's not the least expensive option. And that's because there's a lot of technology, right? That's 70 years collectively between Bell and Giro of innovations and ideas and engineering and technology brought together for the ball and socket. But again, it is the premier Spherical technology that we offer in the line. Again, with the lighter weight, you get the superior ventilation, you get enhanced comfort, and then something that maybe is overlooked by a lot, but none of us overlook it when we're actually shopping, is it allows the style of the helmet to really take on a look that looks appropriate for the category. So it looks great, lighter weight, better ventilation, better comfort, right? There's a huge upside to that. So of course we're going to use this in the future across both our mountain bike as well as road and other categories in the future.
Nice. If someone's a beginner rider, is Spherical something that you would recommend, or is it just for advanced riders?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question, right? I mean, of course, being the marketing guy, I'm going to tell you to buy the best helmet we have. I mean, really, it comes down to the type of riding that you're doing and what kind of categories you're getting into. I mean, we're seeing unprecedented sales in e-bikes, and a lot of e-bikes are being bought by a huge range of people, whether it's families all out recreating, people who maybe weren't riding as much, and now this is helping inspire them to ride more. But those e-bikes, as well as the modern trail bikes today, so if you're getting on one of those, they are very capable. They can go down the trails that I could only dream of, back in the 80s and 90s when I first started riding mountain bikes. And so I think it really depends. If you're a recreational rider and you're simply just getting into the sport, we offer a lot of MIPS options, all the way down in mountain biking, at least all the way down to like $60, $65. So there are a huge range of different options out there. Of course, if you want the culmination of, like I said, 70 years of innovations and technologies and the absolute best application that we've come up with, then yeah, I would absolutely recommend Spherical every single time.
All right. Well, I've got one last question, unless we get any more that come in on the chat. But is Spherical safer?
Oh man. Scott. No, I will have Scott comment on this, but that is it's a great question. You know, those of us who work and build helmets, right, it is a kind of loaded question because, you know, making something safer, right? We all know that's kind of a blurry topic. I mean, right down to what is spherical and what is MIPS there for? MIPS is there for to help reduce, you know, the impact forces that come in through the helmet, whether they're again oblique. I'm learning new words every day. You know, oblique or coming straight in on you. Again, everybody's crash is a little bit different. Everybody's head and the physiology is a little different. So can I say it makes it safer? No, but I will say that it is, you know, our most advanced protection, our most advanced engineering, our most advanced research in the marketplace. And, you know, bottom line is that wearing a helmet, and this is widely publicized, wearing a helmet is always going to be the best option versus not wearing a helmet while riding a bike. Because again, unlike your arm, which if you break your arm or if you hurt your foot, you put it in a cast, you put it in a sling, and most of the time, maybe with PT, you feel better again. Your head is a much more dynamic, and your brain in particular is a much more dynamic piece of physiology that we have. It doesn't just work that way. We can't put an ice pack on it or put it in a brace. So, you know, wearing a helmet is always our first recommendation, you know, and that is guaranteed to make you, you know, less likely to have a traumatic brain injury. And then I would always say that, of course, you know, buy the most advanced helmet that are in the market because those have all of the most advanced research there. So it really is a dependent, right? It's not necessarily safe. One is not safer than the other. They all follow a standard, but definitely wear a helmet. And then if you can, or if you have the means to afford it, again, going up to the higher level helmets will offer more protection, deeper protection, and then again, all of that technology that we port into every single helmet that we have.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, the question is MIPS safer than spherical or vice versa? It's better to approach it thinking of it as a synthesis. You know, as we've said, we use MIPS in a lot of our helmets across the lines. And what Spherical is taking the good idea that MIPS has, and you know, we've partnered with them, applying their technology in a way that gives us extra benefits to that helmet. It isn't is one better than the other because at the end of the day, the heart of the idea is the same, and we're just applying it in a way that lets us do other cool stuff with it. So all these helmets pass you know, impact certifications for the linear, and all of them are sent to MIPS to pass to get this. Any helmet you see with this little dot means it's passed MIPS's internal rotational standard, and you know, they've got that detailed on their website if you're interested in it. So yeah, we're working with them. We're trying to make cool stuff, and we're trying to, you know, a rising tide lifts all boats. So if we can make something that's cooler and partner with them and talk about it and talk it through and get these ideas out there, it's better for everybody in the long run. So
yeah, and ultimately, just to build on that, I mean, all of our helmets pass all the global standards that are out there, and we definitely keep pushing, you know, in terms of the innovations that we add into it. And lastly, like the way I'd always frame it up on a spherical versus say a non-spherical helmet, you know, against any other the helmets in our portfolio or globally, is that spherical helmet. Really think about it this way: it's going to be lighter, it's going to be cooler, it's going to be more comfortable. And if those are things that are important to you when you're riding, then those are going to be, again, a really great reason to actually try a spherical helmet in the market. And
Thank you. Well, I think that's all our questions today. Thank you for joining us. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can check out our videos on the Super Air that you saw, Super Air R spherical helmets. And be sure to tune into YouTube this Sunday at 2 o'clock Pacific time for the video premiere of our recent interview with Jill Kittner. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at Bell Bike Helmets. Cheers.